Hey guys, Anime Gypsy here with another Anime Classics review. This is the review for Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, and I've been wanting to do this for quite a while because this is my favorite Miyazaki movie. It is, without a shadow of a doubt. This is the first review in which I give a movie a straight 10 out of 10 across the board. This is the best Miyazaki movie I have ever seen, and it is possibly the best anime I've ever seen in my perspective. Possibly. I really need to go through all of them in my head and think about this. But the reason this is so good is because it's good across the board. The music is phenomenal. The music 10 out of 10. The voice acting 10 out of 10, both the subbed of course and the dubbed, with with major roles being played by Sir Patrick Charles Xavier Stewart and Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, pretty big names, especially nowadays. So you had this and other stuff, like the animation was very good. The one of the key animators in this movie was the creator, or the future creator rather, of Neon Genesis Evangelion. We also have a lot of things, philosophically speaking, 10 out of 10. This is a 10 out of 10 movie. Like, it's so obvious to me. Okay, let's talk. If I talk about the voice acting, it's gonna take a while. So let's talk about the music. And the music is very important here because it backs the narrative and the philosophical implications of this movie. And what I'm trying to say here is innocence plays a big role in this movie. Innocence and nature are equivocal in this movie. And it's a notion that has been pushed constantly, and one of the ways it's been pushed is through the music. This philosophical theme has been pushed through the music, that childish la 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 la, that childish Om music which connects us to the Om themselves, show us how beautiful they are and also a degree of innocence that they hold. And since the Om represents the forest, the Om represent nature. Therefore, nature is innocence. And this is something we see all over the place. And it's a good balance too. Like the way this movie balances things: violence, innocence, technology, nature, war, peace. I mean, this is a priceless masterpiece, guys. And in the face of something so perfect, I can't say anything less than this is the best Miyazaki movie in my perspective, period. It beats Spirited Away. It beats Princess Mononoke. Easy. That's my perspective on the matter. Like, I don't even think, in my perspective, I don't even think Spirited Away could touch this. Like that's where I'm going with that. The philosophical implications are great with this one. The message here is big. The music is phenomenal. The voice acting, it's a very well-rounded, amazing movie. Ah. And again, touching on the aspects of violence and peace and violence and innocence and all that. You have violence being displayed in landscapes, in ruined villages, in the toxic jungle, and innocence. Well, not in the poison, the toxins, and innocence being portrayed with Princess Mononoke and the inner songs of the Aum when we see them, entrancing people with their tentacle-like things. That is when we see innocence. And in a way, the one person that is least affected by the venom, by the toxins in the jungle, the one person that seems to be least affected by those toxins is Princess Mononoke. Not just because, I mean, yes, because she's wearing the mask and everything, but she's the one that's least afraid of nature, least afraid of the toxic poison. In a way, the toxic poison is a metaphor to adulthood, where the only person able to interact with nature, interact with these toxins, is a child that is not intoxicated with indoctrinations of man versus nature, of good and bad, of all this stuff. In a way, this poison is a metaphor for adulthood. It's just like Catcher in the Rye. And speaking of Catcher in the Rye, um, there's this organization in Japan called Shiryaikyo, and its leader was an avid reader of Nojiko of the Valley of the Wind back during its heyday as a manga in Japan, written and illustrated, of course, by the great Miyazaki himself. This guy believed this message wholeheartedly, where man is doing something wrong, the apocalypse is inevitable, and he became tautologically attached to the notion of apocalypse through one of the mediums being this beautiful piece of art. And he was in charge of committing an atrocity where he basically gassed the train station. And again, this is a similarity to another piece of art, Catcher in the Rye, where multiple folks actually were caught reading this type of novel and using it as a justification for their actions, as in, I'm doing this to preserve. So in Nojiko of the Valley of the Wind's case, I'm doing this to preserve nature. I'm doing this to preserve balance and to prevent the apocalypse. And in Catcher in the Rye, I'm doing this to preserve innocence. And in the same way, since nature is innocence, in the lingo of Nojiko of the Valley of the Wind, it's the same thing. It really is. It's the same thing. Nature is innocence. Nature, innocence, and instinct are the same thing. Because Nojiko is the manifestation of instinct. She is the manifestation of nature. And it's just beautiful to see what Miyazaki's trying to do with this. It really is. And in a way, even in the darkest times of this novel, we get to see glimmers of happiness, with the Ohm, for example, most notable case, with a lot of other things as well. Jokes between the villagers talking about Nojiko, and this reminds me of a novel, a pretty well-known novel in Japan. The translation for it is Hard-Boiled Wonderland, and it's supposed to have a very unique perspective of the apocalypse, where part of it isn't really that bad, and there's a wonderland in the apocalypse, and in a way, the forest could be a symbol of the wonderland and its mysteries. And yeah, the novel was written by Murakami Haruki. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is terrible. And speaking of this perception of the apocalypse, what makes this movie unique is it has a new perspective to the apocalypse, where the Western perspective of the apocalypse really does rely on biblical texts, or maybe biblical texts, and in the Middle East, Quranic texts, whatnot too. But here it's something different. They're basically discussing the apocalypse in terms of nature and the violation of nature, and nature basically having its revenge, and basically the destruction of balance. And in a city that's been violated, in a country that's been violated in many ways due to radiation from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, not constant, occasional floodings in certain areas. It really does seem that the concept of nature versus man and man versus nature is something that would be played out in this area, because on one hand you have tsunamis that kill people, and on the other hand you have radiation and an aberration of nature that also kills people, and also interacts with nature in a very harmful manner. So in a way, it makes perfect sense that such a thing would be discussed in this movie, where you see the violation of nature being the catalyst for the creation of the apocalypse. You see, when this movie started, the apocalypse had already happened, and what was the premise of the movie was but the ashes in which the previous civilization that thrived has, it's the way it goes. Like, what we have in the beginning of the movie is just the remains of what was. And it's interesting because as the audience, we in a way have more knowledge than the characters themselves as to what happened during the time in which the earth was distraught, because we're seeing it today. When Nojiko of the Valley of, when Nojiko said what in the world could have polluted the earth to such an extent, us today looking at the world, looking at what plastic is doing to the seas, looking at what factories, firms are doing to the air, looking at what oil spills are doing to the water and doing to the plants, and garbage dumps and how they interact with just this stuff we're seeing today is an indicator of what's going on in Nojiko of the Valley of the Wind, and the consequence of this carelessness of not taking care of nature, and how nature might, take its revenge, so to speak. From a political spectrum, from a well, actually, no, first from a philosophical standpoint, Nojiko of the Valley of the Wind, in a way, is, from my perspective, it somewhat seems to be a uh, a, a complement. I don't know how to explain this. It supports Lao Tzu's Taoism philosophy, and it critiques Aristotle's, and Socrates's and Plato's philosophies of, man is a monster that needs to be tamed by civilization, rather than man needs to return to his roots. And here, Nojiko returns to her roots, and that's how she saves the day at the very end, because she returns to her roots. She realizes that this talk of war, this aggressive fashion of, this aggressive manner in which, okay, the only way to beat the forest is to burn down the forest or to destroy the forest. Why not live with the forest? It's like that. And on the other hand, Kushana, the female antagonist, so to speak, her political ideology is basically realism. So, the strongest guy, the strongest guy's in charge of the block. The stronger the better. And in a way, you could say that this is a critique of realism, because it doesn't really work out for the main antagonist. If you could even call her that, because you have an understanding of what she's trying to do. And this is something great about Miyazaki movies. You could really understand almost all the characters. Like Kushina, like all of them, almost all of them. And this is what I really like about this. It's so amazing. Just the stuff that we could see in these movies, and the things that Miyazaki's really displayed for us, and just this is priceless stuff. If you liked the review, please leave a like. And until next time, guys, this is Anime Gypsy, and I'm out. See you guys later. Bye.